What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel, your go-to place for Lions content that's including news, updates, analysis, and so much more. Hopefully some breaking news about a trade, because that would be awesome on a Monday night, especially following another Lions win. I'm Miko, joined by my guy, Morgan Cannon. Morgan, Lions win again, right? 7-1 on the season, another very impressive win. Basically, taking everything that everyone was saying about them and basically flipping on its head. Apparently this is a team that can't win outdoors, even though they won 2 big games outdoors last year. But hey, people like to make up narratives when teams are playing well and try and finding ways of knocking them down, I guess.
Yeah, I'm glad we hope to be moved on from that. We've kind of debunked that because, man, that was barring a ice bowl game, that was as outdoors as outdoor games go. If you looked online at all, it was raining, man. Sometimes you can't really tell with how nice those cameras are that the NFL uses for their broadcasts, how hard it was raining like cats, sideways, man. So, to everyone for executing. Goff was on his P's and Q's, on his stuff again, like an MVP, playing the best football of his career, in my opinion. I've watched him since 2016, just like a lot of people have.
Yep.
Yeah, it just great to see. And in my opinion, this is the best team in football right now. I know the Chiefs are undefeated. We were just talking about it, but I don't want to hear all that. This is, yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, at this point, I'm ready for the Chiefs to lose. Not because, of anything, I don't think it's going to derail their season at all. I just want them to have a loss on the record so that people can all just get to the collective thought process that, hey, the Lions are the best team in football. Because I feel like everyone's there, right? You listen to the national media. Everyone wants to say it, but they can't because, hey, there is an undefeated team in the NFL right now. And again, the Chiefs have done what they needed to do, right? No one cares how you win as long as you win. And they're the defending Super Bowl champs. So being undefeated and the Super Bowl and the reigning Super Bowl champs goes a long way. But we talked about this a couple weeks ago. If you turn on the film, you've watched the last few weeks, the Lions are the best team in football, in every aspect of the game. And Morgan, in this one, again, getting another much-needed win in the division against a Packers team that was tough. You and I did the breakdown of it, and we talked about how difficult this team was going to be able to defend offensively, even in the elements. I went on another YouTube channel this over the weekend and talked about, again, how I thought this was going to be one of the toughest tests that the Lions were going to have to face, but yet they still found a way to get a win. When you look back at the game, what was the biggest difference in this Lions win in comparison to all the other ones? Because I think there was something special about this one.
Yeah, just sound situational football, man. That's what the Lions have done for, there's flashiness here, there's 70-yard runs and there's kick returns and there's trick plays, but they do the little things right, getting them to jump on that 4th down to make it a shorter down and distance for the Amon-Ra score. And that was a perfect throw by Goff, by the way. Perfect route, perfect everything. It was really good coverage. They converted on money downs. They're only 4 of 12 on 3rd down, but they were 2 for 2 on 4th. And both of those paid some pretty big dividends when it was all said and done. So, and they overcame, you overcome a bunch, man. They are decimated right now on the defensive line, missing starters and contributors everywhere you look on the edge, especially. You lose Brian Branch. He was in for 24 snaps, and I know me and you, our opinion, that's the Lions' best defensive player when 97 isn't on the field.
And it's still arguable when 97 is on the field.
Facts, yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. It's arguable.
That conversation might have to be had here by the end of the season because he's just I've watched a good bit of the film so far, a little chunk, and he's already just making play after play, against the run, against the pass, just being a great football player. So they lose him. Brandon Joseph's thrown into the fire. It's a monsoon, but they just were sound. AG had a plan. I don't know if he could really see anything because this man,
someone is going to live I've seen
forever.
A couple good ones with that picture of him and his glasses, bro. Priceless.
Listen, as a glasses wearer, we're glasses wearers. I have contacts too. When it's rainy outside, you got to have a plan. Okay. Otherwise you're that's not fun. You don't want to look through a rainy windshield the entire afternoon.
Out here, using your fingers as windshield wipers.
And then it's all schmeary because you got oils on your hands. And it's not what I want to do. It bothers me a lot. So shout out to AG because he just apparently didn't care. But yeah, just have the guys ready to play. Really good offense. I question the Packers a little bit for playing Love and in lieu of Willis, just because he did not look. We talked about it. Every time the rush got close to him, he looked like he couldn't move. That's why he threw that gift basket to Kirby Joseph that Kirby took to the crib to make it 17-3 before the half, because he couldn't move and he just, and Kirby said, don't mind if I do.
Yeah, it definitely felt like early in that game, like early in the game, it was definitely felt like it was going to be exactly what we thought it was going to be, right? When Josh Jacobs was literally just chugging down the field, it was like, oh, like this is what it's going to be. It's going to be exactly what we said. It was going to be an old school NFC North type of just like punch you in the face type of game. And both teams like literally gave their best shots. Green Bay settled for a field goal. The Lions were able to punch it in for a touchdown after that great, uh, you know, fake to be able to get the Packers to jump. Like, I'm with you. I think that is, to me, the biggest difference in this game is that Dan Campbell has done this time after time, but it really showed in this one when the conditions aren't the best, when you don't have the depth that you're used to having on the defensive side. When we were talking about pass rushers, when you lose your best defensive player to a penalty that and getting ejected, like everything in that game was early on was set up to be like, hey, the Lions might finally drop one, and they just rallied. They just continue to stay sound and they continue to stick to the game plan. And that's another thing I got to give, like I said, I got to give Dan credit for, I got to give Ben Johnson credit for, because this is one of those games where Jared's been playing great, right? But we all know, like when it's raining like that, like throwing the ball isn't the most optimal thing to do. So credit to them for trusting David Montgomery and being able to give it to their backs and being like, hey, we're going to stick to what we typically like to do, which is allow the run game to open up, our pass game for us. And then, like you said, which kind of moves me into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is AG, and giving AG credit for the defensive adjustments that he's made like 2 weeks in a row, Morgan. Like this isn't just like a one-off thing. Like last week we saw the Titans get off early with Calvin Ridley and him racking up a ton of yards. They go into halftime, they make the adjustments. Calvin Ridley is basically unheard of again in the second half. Same thing happens with Josh Jacobs, basically racks up the majority of his yards in the first half, right? At least close to 90 yards in the first half. He finishes the game with 95. Like that ability to rally your guys and say, hey, this is what they're doing. We're stopping it here. Like this isn't going to continue for the rest of the game. That is such a huge testament to what AG has done. I know there's going to be people that are going to look at the yardage at the end of the game and be like, but they're giving up so many yards. And even I question it to a certain degree, but you can't discredit how this man is getting this unit to play above their means. Like you said, when they're missing so many pieces, when they're missing Aiden, when they're missing Brian Branch for a game, when they're missing Pascal, they're missing Wingo, and you're having practice squad guys come in really crappy conditions and still finding a way of holding a very talented Packers team to 14 points.
Yeah. A part of me, like when I'm sitting here watching, it was an away game, so we're at home. And when Brian Branch got ejected, I was like, man, part of me crept into the back of my head. I'm like, that could be the undoing for this game, man. This is going to be tough as it is. Now we're down BB. And then I was like, you know what though? Like that's kind of that conditioning as a Lions fan from back in the day is really gone. Like I was like, I trust this coaching staff. I trust this team. Someone, texted me today. They're like, are they gonna lose a game the rest of the way? I'm like, let's calm down. Like it's a long season. Like, yeah, it's the NFL. Like you could drop a few games here and there, but on a week to week basis, I trust that this team's going to be ready to meet the challenge that's in front of it. And that's a testament to how Dan Campbell and the staff, everybody has, made it for the organization, right? Like it's an organizational thing. It's how they approach things. You can tell they play with an edge. Like we saw that yesterday. And that has to get cleaned up. I'm not, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm not a proponent of throwing anybody out of the game for one. I think that's crazy without any sort of history. And that's probably for a whole nother video.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing, man.
That's the wildest part of him getting ejected is that it was like one hit, no history of having those types of violent hits on people. And for it to be like an instant ejection was a shocker. And it did feel like you said, it felt like those, Lions feelings coming back where it's like, oh, is this the screw job in the works? Like, is this how we're going to basically get screwed out of this game? But again, I still think things went in the Lions' favor in terms of how they played. again, the fact that the weather was so crappy, the fact that Jordan Love wasn't healthy, I think also helped in a way because the Packers were never able to get the deep ball going, right? Like that. And it just, those conditions were never there to be able to try to stretch the Lions defense vertically that way. And so you had to play the Lions style of football. And when you play a Dan Campbell style way of football, very few teams are going to outbully us. And that's genuinely how I feel. And I think it happened a few times last year. And I think Dan has kind of gotten his guys ready for that now. Is that like, hey, certain teams are going to try to come in here and punk you. I do think the Packers wanted to come in here or go into that game and try to punk the Lions after what hearing like Xavier McKinney was saying about like, hey, like they try to go out and embarrass people. I think there was a certain chip on their shoulder. But again, you try to play our style of football, and Dan just has this team ready for that type of dogfight each and every week.
Yeah, and like they did some things well. You mentioned they racked up a lot of kind of some hollow yards because you look at it, right? Like the Lions were up 24-3 early in the third quarter because they got the ball out of the half, up 17-3. You had the Jahmyr Gibbs 15-yard run, and just like that, Green Bay's down 21, and you got a quarter and a half to play in a monsoon, right? So that complicates things if you're off script. And I know LaFleur was not happy about that because he's someone who likes to stay on schedule and stay within the confines of his script and how he wants to operate on offense. But that was all out the window because the Lions were really good situationally. And you had Kirby Joseph capitalize, like we mentioned on the pick six, and just overall, just a really comprehensive performance. And then it's another one, like it's another tick, like on the checklist, if you will, for this team, like going through their trials, like in order to get where they want to go. And hopefully that's being one of the last teams playing in February, right? That's the goal for this team. They've set it from the jump. And it's still early. We're going into week 10, right? Yeah, that was just week 9. So we're going into week 10 against Houston. A lot of football left, but so far they're walking the walk, man. And it's really exciting. So much fun to watch. I'm trying to be present and just like soak it all in. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, like, I think that's the difficult part, right? Is to be in the moment and literally go week to week with this team and not get too high or get too low, especially when you're looking at the rest of the landscape, right? We talked about this a little while ago with just like, with the Chiefs being 7-0, the Lions being 7-1, the Bills being 7-1, and I think the Commanders are 7-2. Like those teams are all being looked at. You have the Eagles, I believe are 6-2 right now, and so they're starting to trend up. The Rams are starting to kind of trend up as they're starting to get healthy. There's a lot of teams. Again, it's still so early in the season that like everyone is still has like a dog in the fight. But when you look at this team, because like I said, we've been on this train already that the Lions are the best team in football right now. For you, what is the single trait that you look at from this team that's like, this is why they're better? This is the thing that separates them from everybody else that has those same aspirations of making it to the Super Bowl?
Well, it's kind of a like encompassing answer, but hear me out, right? Like the Lions have won games now in a multitude of ways. And really, if they didn't have just like a complete turd performance in the red zone in week 2, they're probably 8-0 right now if we're keeping it a buck. You know what I mean? Because they've won games, defensively where it's been a little bit more of a low scoring affair where they've had to, just kind of a little bit of a rock fight. And then they've blown the doors off of teams that don't have any business being on the field with them. Like they've done that a couple times now, right? Like even the Seattle game, that wasn't particularly close, man. They handled business.
No, despite what that score looks like, yeah.
That was kind of a butt whooping. And then obviously we know about Dallas and Tennessee now. Handled like really tough game, tough atmosphere against a really good team in Minnesota. But they've just done it in a multitude of ways. And I think that's what, like right now, yes, Kansas City's undefeated. Their offense has been meh, right? You go watch them, you look at some advanced statistics. Mahomes is still Mahomes, but the offense just isn't really what it has been. And their defense is carrying them, right? So, but say that defense doesn't have their best day. Well, then that might be a bit of a problem if you're playing a team like the Lions, because now you're going to have to keep pace. And if you have to keep pace, that could be tough too, because the defense is slowly getting better, right? And it's just and the special teams, like you got the best punter in football for my money. I don't know a ton about other punters, but Jack Fox is consistently flipping the heck out of the field, man. Like a weapon. They do it in so many different ways. They've proven now that they can go do it in Wisconsin in a monsoon. think it's just hard to argue against it. I know Kansas City has the best player in the world right now, and they're undefeated. But like we talked about, context matters, and I think it's the Lions, man.
And I think that's really important to point out, right? I love the fact that you pointed out, like they've won in a myriad of different ways. And that is something that we've always heard with other Super Bowl contending teams, right? Like that's the mark of a championship caliber team. Can you win when things aren't going your way? So like the season started out, and I remember like the first couple of videos we did in the early part of the season where it's like, man, the offense just seems like it's in the mud still, right? They're still trying to get everything worked out. And then they finally have that explosion, I believe, against Seattle. And it's like, okay, like, hey, this is what we thought the offense would look like. And the offense has been chugging ever since. You have that setback of losing Aiden Hutchinson again in that Dallas game. And yet you still go out and you find a way to beat Minnesota. You go out there and you completely pound Tennessee into the ground. You go out there and you handle your business against Green Bay. So it's like, okay, so even when things aren't going your way, even when you're having injuries, you're still finding ways of winning. And you look at other teams like Kansas City is probably the only other example of that where it's like, hey, things aren't going well and they're still finding ways of winning. But to your point, it's off the strength of their defense primarily, but because they're still like they're plug and playing guys on their offense because they can't seem to keep wide receivers healthy. You look at, Buffalo. Buffalo seems to finally be getting it together. Like you talk about an MVP candidate, like what Josh Allen is doing this year is very special. But again, it's like, they're still figuring things out. How high will they continue to ride, as the season kind of progresses? Washington seems very like exciting. Like it's young excitement. Jaden Daniels is doing a lot of exciting things, but again, they still have to prove it. Just like the Lions did 2 years ago when it was like, hey, they're starting to trend the right way. You have to prove that you can do that consistently. So I think the thing that sets the Lions apart is, like you said, they've won in a myriad of different ways. And this isn't like a flash in the pan. We've seen them trend this way the last few seasons. And so it's like, this looks like not like the final version of them because again, they're not healthy, but it's like, this is what Brad Holmes, Sheila Hamp, and Dan Campbell have been building towards under this new regime. And it's like, this is what a championship caliber team looks like. And I think from top to bottom, and again, from top to bottom roster wise and top to bottom, what they're doing on Sundays, this looks like the best football team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and it's just so cool that it was how it was done, right? Because they told us, and you hear, especially as Lions fans, right? If you're a fan of sports in general, you probably heard that a million times, but Lions for sure, right? You heard GMs and coaches coming here. We want to do things the right way. We want to instill a culture, this and that. We heard it all. And then these people like Sheila, Brad, Dan, everyone, top down, they walked the walk, man. They talked about it. They had a plan. They stuck to it. It got tough. I still remember starting 1-6 in 2022, what the Lions did. And Sheila had to come out and talk to the media. Remember, like, I still have faith in Brad and Dan. I think we're doing this the right way. And to be honest, I did too, because they were so close a couple of those games. I'm like, they don't suck right now. They're just, they didn't, it's cliche, but they didn't know how to close out games. And then started to close out games, and you finished 2022 6-2, and it's just been off and running, and it's just a sustained. And that's why I feel so excited about this, man, is because this is a program now to me. Like, players are going to come and go. Like, there's going to be some pillars, right, that'll probably be here hopefully for the next 10-15 years, but people are going to come and go. Coaches are going to get poached. Like, I think Aaron Glenn's going to be a head coach next year no matter what. Ben Johnson, we'll see, because that man is picky.
Hey, just stay away from the Jets, AG. I don't care how nostalgic that feels. Do not go
there. I go to New Orleans. They need to suck for a couple. Yeah. Give him like a nice 7-year deal, because they need to pay penance for kicking the can down the road for the salary cap for so long, because that bill's come due. All right, now, like, y'all talk about the salary cap's not real. Go look at New Orleans situation for the next couple of years and tell me the salary cap's not real. That thing. Woo boy. So
they need an AG rebuild. Like, just tear it all down
to the studs, just the way the Lions did, where you're accepting you're not going to be good for a year or two. But yeah, I think it's a program. They've done it the right way, and it's so cool to see this finally happen. And the fact that they all seem like good people, man. Like, everyone seems to really like Brad and Dan, and I think that goes a long way. Like, there's a reason Zadarius Smith's like walking out of the locker room in Cleveland kind of happy because he's like, I might be going to Detroit. We're just assuming that, but he was wearing the blue and he just hustled out of the locker room. So we're connecting the clues here,
Bro, I'm gonna tell you right now, if we get off this video, because we're recording this Monday night, if we get off this video and news breaks that I will record another video. I don't care if it's like 2-3 minutes of just us yelling about how excited we are, but like
down.
That does seem like the next like domino that needs to fall. But I agree with you. Like everything that they have put, like the front office has put into works, it feels like a professional program that's now going to have a consistent, track record of winning. They have the players, they have the coach, they have the front office personnel. It's all about now just going out and executing, right? And I think you have the right guy steering the ship in Dan Campbell, because Dan's never going to, it just seems like he's never going to be that guy that's going to let his team or his players get too high or too low on themselves, right? Like you can never, Dan definitely feels like that guy. Like he's not going to let you feel yourself too much. Like absolutely like get your flowers, but also like remember that we have to handle business each and every day.
Yep. And that's it. Even the Titans game, like to me, that was a little bit of it's a mini test, but a test nonetheless. Like that's a game that was right before the Packers game, sandwiched in between the Vikings and, Packers. So that could have been a trap game. No trap game under Dan Campbell. The Lions came out and kicked the crap out of Tennessee and almost set a couple records and kept it all business, man. And I think it's instilled in the players too. Like when you hear Penei Sewell talk to the team pregame, the message is it's fairly consistent with a little bit more juice depending on who they're playing, probably, but fairly consistent.
Had some juice. This Packers one had a little bit of. That was some. We had some bulletin material. We've heard some things.
Golly, yep, absolutely.
Last thing we're going to talk about before we get out of here, though, but like, all right, so we've talked about this team being a contender. We've talked about again how they were able to overcome the Packers. We've given AG his flowers. Morgan, it's Monday. And I don't get to I don't watch a lot of ESPN. I don't watch a lot of like sports talk radio or anything like that anymore, mainly because I don't want to take any talking points from someone else and try to bring it here. Bro, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about the Lions being a Super Bowl favorite. Are we jumping the gun? Is it too early to be talking Super Bowl with this Lions team?
And it's week 10, right? And so yes, it's too early, but it happens every year. So I'm going to say no, because this is what people do. Like this is how we occupy this. The time between Sundays. You talk about the Sunday before and the Sunday coming up, and it's a beautiful thing because that's what we do for several months here during football season. So no, I don't think it's too early. The Lions, I think Jeremy retweeted it. Excuse me, but they're favored to win the Super Bowl by DVOA, which is one of many football nerds' favorite advanced metrics. So the proof is there, right? And, it's early. They're going to lose games, in my opinion, still. You got 9 games left to play still, which is crazy. I feel like we've been playing football for a while here, but,
I was literally thinking that today. Like, I was like, bro, like, it feels like I just want the season to be over so that we can get to the Super Bowl, because I feel like we have the momentum to get.
So that's what I'm saying. Buckle up. So, and, like old football people always say, the real football is played in December, in January. So, that there's still some important stretches, but yeah, they passed a lot of big hurdles. So I don't see how you can't have them in the Super Bowl. Like, in my opinion, you're being disingenuous if you're saying they're not at least the best team in the NFC, because the other best teams they've kind of knocked off, right? So
yeah. Well, and I also think you're being a little disingenuous if you're saying that you're not peeking ahead, right? Like if you're not like looking at the schedule and being like, man, like if we can win these games, and then obviously keep the streak going into the playoffs. Like December is going to be tough. Like looking at the schedule now, you got the Bills, you got the Niners, you got the Packers again, and you got the Vikings again, right? Like all of these teams have winning records right now. Like I said, the Bills are also sitting at 7-1. So it's like, it's going to be interesting. It sounds so cliche to say it, and it sounds like a way of hedging, but like that's when this team is going to have to be playing their best football, is when December rolls around. And can you slay these other giants, right? Because these are other teams that are going to be contending for playoff spots and that are going to be contending to make a push to make it to the Super Bowl. If you can slay those beasts, if you can continue to trend upwards, bro, it says really good things about your chances. Again, the postseason is the postseason. It's a different beast entirely, but it at least points you in that direction. You're trending in that direction to be able to at least be able to say like, yeah, we deserve to be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I didn't realize Buffalo's 7-2, but they're good. Yeah, that's a good team. Got 3 AFC South games coming up. Houston, who, I really like CJ Stroud and a lot of their weapons, but that offensive line looks bad. Their defense
Bro, this
doesn't look
past
good.
week against the Jets, they looked rough. Now, this may
That's
be
tough.
a good get-right game for the Lions defensive line. Like, it's a good, because I think they just lost their left guard for the season.
Yeah, they tried out a bunch of people today. That's tough. He's as good as CJ Stroud is. That's tough. The bunch of receivers are obviously hurt. Defense hasn't been good. And then you got Texans, Jags, Colts, Bears. Jags, Colts, Bears. So it'd be nice to
keep that streak rolling.
It'd be nice. Then you'd set yourself up to talk some 1 seed, and then the NFC playoffs would roll through Ford Field. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll get into some Houston tape, maybe talk about how their offensive line is having some struggles right now. And we can get into that. Sunday Night Football, man. Sunday Night Football, though, I hate to wait all day. Dang it.
Sunday Night Football is it's a long
day.
night. It's a long day. So,
yeah.
But at least we can get stuff done like in the middle of the day. But
True.
It's another Victory Monday. Hopefully we get some really good news either today or tomorrow about Zadarius Smith. If we do get some news, we will definitely drop a video, whether it's a long one or a short video. Like, we'll at least have something for you guys talking about that. Don't want to talk too much about it just yet because nothing's official. There was the rumor that came out over the weekend or on Sunday, but nothing's official yet. So once it's official, we'll talk about it. But until then, if you guys are looking for any more Detroit Lions content, like you guys already know, all you have to do is head over to prideofdetroit.com. There is new articles being uploaded all the time. In fact, if there is a trade, it'll be there first before we ever get a video done. So definitely keep your eyes on the website. If you are looking to keep tapped in with the YouTube channel, it's very simple. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave a like on this video. All of those things will help you be able to find our content easier, and it helps us in terms of being able to get our content out to more and more Lions fans, which is the number one thing that we want to do as we can continue to spread good information and good Lions content. So with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.